Hey, what's up guys? Jake with Legacy 4x4 here again, and today we're going to be doing a front bumper on my 1990 Ford Bronco. Alright, so as you guys can see, last time we painted the front of the Bronco, or painted the entirety of the Bronco, and we've got it a nice dark jade metallic green using Summit Racing's one stage urethane paint. The paint job came out pretty nicely, but there was one piece of the truck on the exterior aesthetically that was not quite up to snuff yet, and that was the front bumper. As you can see, I've already removed it, and it's currently laying in the back of my truck so it can go to the scrapyard, but we need to put up a new front bumper, and specifically I want to have a winch on it. So we're going to be doing a front winch bumper on this 1990 Ford Bronco. As you can see, I ripped off on the frame rail, I ripped off the old bumper, and then just used two pieces of 1/4 inch plate here and here tied into the original mounting holes. That is going to be the base framework for our bumper. What I like to do when I build bumpers is I build off from the mounting points first, and so starting with these mounting points here, we'll then start doing our cross supports, and then the first thing I'm going to build is the winch plate. So the winch plate's going to get done and installed first, and then we will kind of box that in and clean it up, and then we'll build the rest of the bumper off of that existing structure, because that's the part that needs to be the strongest, and so that's the part I like to do first. After that, we're going to do some kind of tube design, do some really basic tube work along the contours of the truck here, and then coming down and tying everything together. Should be a fun project. Anyways, we got this part done. I'm going to cheat a little bit on the winch plate, so I'll take you guys back inside the garage and I'll show you guys what we got to start this project. So to start this project, and what we're going to use as our main support structure, the main centerpiece of this bumper, it's going to be this winch mount from Harbor Freight. So you can buy these at Harbor Freight, they're $52. This is a piece of, looks like 316, that's got two 90-degree bends on it. It's got the fairlead mount cut out so you can put the fairlead on the front, and it's got a variety of winch mounting holes drilled into the top of the plate here. Harbor Freight says this will fit both their 9,000 and 12,000 pound winches. Both those winches use the standard winch mounting pattern, so this should fit a large variety of winches. It does come with some kind of a coating on it, so to weld it you're going to have to grind off some of this coating. But overall, this is a lot cheaper and quicker and easier than having to make this plate by myself. Sure, I could do it, but this is just more efficient use of the time. So this is going to be our main centerpiece for this. I'm going to actually be taking the winch off of the Commando because the Commando is still not running and driving. So the winch is going to come off the Commando and it's going to go onto the Bronco. So I'm going to take that winch off, make sure it matches up with this, and make sure it fits on top of this winch plate, and then we'll get to building out the rest of this winch bumper. Good. Alright, so this is the basic framework. This is what we were just talking about here. So as you can see, this is that Harbor Freight piece of U-channel winch mount that we have here. It's cut out, it's got the fairlead mount on it, and it's got a variety of bolt holes in here. Hopefully it fits the Zeke perfectly. I just tried to line it up on the table and it was pretty close. Worst case, I'll drill out some of these holes, but this is our basic framework. So we're using some 1/4 inch pieces of plate on the side. So these are 6 inches tall, 12 inches long, 1/4 inch pieces of steel on both sides that are tied into the frame rail using 1/2 inch 13 by 20 grade 8 hardware. And then we have spanning this gap, this is a 2x3 by 1/8 inch piece of tube spanning this gap with the U-channel on top of it. This is going to be our main frame for this bumper. We'll come through later on and we'll do some touch-up stuff where we kind of do some vanity things up here to give this a more finished and completed look. But for now, this is what we got. The next thing we're going to do is start bending some tube. So we're going to do one big piece of tube along this top here that kind of wraps around the whole bumper, tied into the backside of the U-channel, and then we'll do some accent pieces coming up to the front here at some angles. So that's what we got. Let's go bend up some tube and let's start seeing what this looks like. Alright, so I kind of skipped this part a little bit as we were going. So what I did is we have an upper bar here, and that's just two simple 90-degree bends measured out to the top of it. You guys have seen me bend tube before. We got a 90-degree bar here, and then I did do a notch and hammer method in the very center of this because the Bronco's got just a little point right in the middle. So we did the little notch and hammer method, got ourselves a very sharp bend at the very front here. And now we've got the curvature following the body and sucking this up really nicely to the body of the truck. Got a couple vertical diagonal supports here coming down on the wings of this that are going to hold that main upper bar into place. So once we get those tacked into place, we'll come through and we'll start to add in the rest of our supports and a little bit of our aesthetic pieces onto this bumper. Anyways, let's weld these things up. Okay, so we got almost most of the bumper done here. I've been skipping around a lot, so I apologize for that. But next up, we're going to go through and chop. We have a little bit of overcut from those 1/4 inch plates that make up the main frame rail. We're going to cut about 3 inches, 2.5 inches off of that, and then fold it over in front of the bumper, covering up the 2x3 sub-channel support that we have underneath the winch plate. So we're going to cut that down with an angle grinder, smack it with a hammer, and bend it into place, and then tack weld it all together so that we have a nice sturdy kind of like wrapped. That way the 1/4 inch is kind of like wrapping through that 2x3 and securing the whole bumper together. So let's get to that part next. Okay, so we've got the basic hoop, the one that comes underneath the front of the truck that kind of fills in that body gap. We've got that done. We've got our diagonal support pieces done. Now we're going to add in some additional structure to this front bumper that's going to give it the strength it needs to be a place that we can winch from and to be something that we can bash against a tree or a rock or whatever on the trail. So we're going to use some more scrap. This is the same Schedule 82 that we've been using for the most of the bumper here. We're going to use some scrap pieces of that and make just a simple diagonal piece. So that's going to come up here on the very edge, the far wings of the bumper. It's going to get notched into our top bar here and then just get flush cut along the bottom of the bumper. After that, we'll come through with the plasma cutter and we will cut out just a little notch from this front plate here, and that's going to kind of give us a smoother kind of departure look to this, give it kind of a more rounded, softer look on the front of the truck. And then we'll come through and do a big vanity plate along the front of this, and we're going to mount a couple of LED pod lights on the front of this truck as well. So those are going to go down there in the lower chin of the bumper, so to speak, below the winch. After that, we'll come through and do a couple of J-hooks back behind here to give the back of the winch the structure it needs to hold up to the abuse that it's going to experience. But we are getting really close. So we're going to knock out this stuff, get these last couple of pieces tacked in, take the bumper back off of the truck, put it on the welding table, and go through and do all of the final welding, and then we're going to get to paint. Alright, so this is where we're currently sitting. So you can see we've got our wrap coming around, hugging tight to the body here of the truck. We've got a couple down supports, and we've got our main diagonal supports. Now we do need to add a little bit more to it, namely a couple of J-hooks coming out the back here to tie into the back of this winch plate, and then we got to go through and add in some vanity pieces that go up on those kind of areas there that help kind of cover up some of the cutting. But this is what it is looking like overall. I'm really happy with how this is turning out up to this point. Now down here we are going to put 2 LED rock lights, which are going to go on either side of it, kind of flanking the winch on both sides. But this bumper is almost getting pretty close to being done. Alright, so we got the final piece ready to install, and it's this tiny little J-hook. I made this out of, I'm pretty sure, the very first tube I ever bent when I was calibrating my Bentech software to go with my Rogue Fab. I'm pretty sure this was the tube that I bent to do that. So this, I think, is the oldest piece of scrap I've had in my shop over the last like 6 years or so. Anyways, we've got this little J-hook. It's now being repurposed. It's been cut down and repurposed, and it's going to go right here in the middle of the bumper. And so that's going to go right below where I did that V-notch and then hit it with a hammer. It's going to provide some extra support to that notch, and it's going to circle back at a 90 degree and tie into this 2x3 plate that we have down here, and it's going to give one more piece of support. So total on this bumper, we've got the 2 wings on each side, these 2 verticals, and we'll have 1 J-hook in the middle providing all of the support. Anyways, let's go ahead and weld this up, and then we're going to take this bumper off and bring it inside and do all the final welding on the table. All right, there we have it, all tacked up. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the table and finish welding it up. So we got the bumper completely finished. Let me grab the camera and I'll walk you guys around what this finished product looks like before we get to paint. So this is still the rough, unpainted, unclean product, but let's show you guys what it looks like. For our main structure at the top, we have one piece of Schedule 40 pipe that is bent at a 90 and then has a V-notch right here. As you can see, I covered up that V-notch in the back with just a piece of 1/8 inch that was then pounded into place with a hammer. So kind of ugly, but it is what it is. It covered up this back of it. Really, this V-notch, although structurally not sound, that's not where it gets most of its support from. And then we have down here the J-hook, which is what's supporting that V-notch mostly. And then on the sides, we have a diagonal piece, which comes down to our main lower bar, which is this 2x3 by 1/8 inch piece of rectangular tubing. 1/4 inch walls that mount into the truck, followed up with some diagonal gussets as well that complete this, as you can see walking around the whole thing. Relatively simplistic, relatively lightweight, kind of easy bumper. This isn't a super, like a pre-runner or a super intense bash a tree with it kind of bumper, but this is definitely strong enough to be a winch bumper, and it's certainly strong enough to hit like some small trees and things like that on the trail. More than anything, it's to mount a winch and it's to clean up and replace the broken down old bumper that we used to have on the front of this Bronco. Anyways, let's get this thing painted up and installed on the truck. All right, so with that all done, now we're gonna take it outside. I'm gonna set it on top of 2 of my brand new Free to Me Harbor Freight buckets that I got this weekend for being an Inside Track Club member. So I'm gonna set this up on those 2 buckets and we're going to paint this bumper, install the winch, install the lights, and put it up on the truck. All right, let's get to painting. All right guys, so we got the front bumper of my 1990 Ford Bronco all finished. All in all, not a bad project for one day. This took probably about 5-6 hours or so to do, and it cost $150. So it's $50 for the winch plate. I used 1 stick of Schedule 40, 1 1/4 OD, or sorry, 1 1/4 inner diameter tube, and then used a piece of 2x3. It was scrap, but we'll call it $50 for that piece too. So we got this all finished up, and got this all finished up. Let me go ahead and walk you guys around what this looks like, then I'll talk about what's coming next for this Bronco. All right, so here we have it. You can see we've got the Zeke 13,000 pound winch on the front bumper here. As you can see, this is what our front bumper looks like. As you start just from the front here, it was designed specifically to give ample approach angle and good ground clearance as you come up on something, so that you can see that there is nothing obstructing the tire from any amount of grab. There's no extra bumper over on that side whatsoever. We kept it very minimalistic so that we only have what we need for the winch on the center here, maximizing our approach angle on the side. And as you can see, we also wrapped really close to the body on this, and it terminates just before it hits the fender well, so we got a really nice tight fit up into the body that's going to help protect the body from any dings from the trail. The main section of the bumper is made out of a 2x3 by 1/8 inch rectangle tubing, and then the supports that tie into the frame rails are this 1/4 inch piece of plate. And on this 1/4 inch piece of plate, there's 2 1/2 inch holes in the back of it, and it's secured with 1/2 inch by 13 by 20 hardware, grade 8 hardware as well. And as you can see, looking back here, between the center of the hole and the edge of the plate, you do have about 1 inch. These 2 bolts with plenty of shear back here should give ample strength for any winching operation off the front of this bumper. Moving on up, we've got this Harbor Freight universal winch mount channel piece, and this is what the winch is tied to. That is tied into our 2x3 rectangular tubing, and then on the front we folded this 1/4 inch piece of steel over to really grab and wrap onto that bumper there. For the tube sections, we've got a piece of tube that runs along the lower body rail, and it's tied into our main winch frame with this piece of diagonal tube and this piece of diagonal tube here. So relatively straightforward ties here. You got 4 of them total, 2 on each side like that. And as you can see, that provides plenty of support and maximum ground clearance and approach angle for this vehicle. So I have the grill there. So we've got the grill there. Got to mount that. It's a little bit off, so I need to do some finessing to get that to fit. And then we got to run the daylight running lights, and we were going to add in some fog lights and some other stuff still there. So we got a little bit of wiring to do, a little bit of stuff to add on, but overall the Bronco is turning out to look really, really nice. Alright guys, so that's going to complete this project today. As you can see, we got this bumper completely finished. Overall, not a too expensive of a bumper, not too long of a project either. I didn't use any super crazy tools to do this. But now we've got a brand new winch bumper for the front of my 1990 Ford Bronco. Coming up next on this truck specifically, I've got to do a little bit of wiring and a little bit of tidying up on stuff. And then the next big build that we're going to be doing on this is going to be building out the back. So the first project for that, the first video, is going to be building out the drawer systems. So we're going to have a combination of 2 drawers, maybe 3, but 2 drawers in the back of the Bronco. So we've got a kitchen and we've got drawer storage for like clothing and different supplies. And then after that, we're going to build out the bed and we're going to build out the rest of the interior. So we got interior videos coming up next on this truck. I hope you guys like this. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.